Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we will be talking about measures that should be taken in order to prevent the spread of diseases on your poultry farm. So the first thing is how you build your poultry structure. This is one thing that most poultry farmers ignore in the first place. In fact, the success of your poultry farm first depends on how you construct your poultry house. I have seen some farmers keeping chicken in a house which was built for people to stay in. So how do you expect your birds to grow comfortably in these kinds of house? Of course they will not. Because first, there is no any proper ventilation on your structure, which means that your birds will suffocate and definitely they will die. So guys, before starting your poultry farm, make sure that you construct your own chicken poultry farm. Don't say that I have a spare room somewhere, or I have a spare room at my store, I can keep my birds inside there. That doesn't work. You must construct your own chicken house. That way it will guarantee your success. I am not saying that you must build an expensive one, no, but rather build one which has essentials of a proper poultry structure. For instance, your structure should have a proper aeration inside it. In fact, proper aeration is one thing that matters a lot when building a poultry house, because without proper aeration, your house is nothing. First, if you put your birds in a room without proper aeration, of course your birds will suffocate. That doesn't mean that there is no any air inside it. There is air, but the air is not circulating. It's like putting someone in a deep hole. How can you survive? Of course you will not, because the air right down there is not circulating. I think you guys have watched how I have constructed my poultry house. Not too expensive, but with essentials needed for a good poultry house. If you haven't yet watched the video, I will leave a link right down here so that you can go and watch it. That will help you so much in building your poultry house. And on top of that, make sure that your poultry house does not have any openings from the bottom. This helps so much in preventing things like snakes, rats, and other rodents from entering and attacking your birds. Not only attacking your birds, there are other poultry diseases which are transferred from these rodents to your chicken. Like for instance, diseases like the salmonella, which is a bacterial disease caused by rats. If rats drop their droppings in your feeders and your chickens drink it, that will cause this outbreak of this poultry disease on your farm. And lastly, still on the poultry structure, make sure that when you are constructing your poultry structure, you construct it in an east to west direction, which means that the length or the longer side of your poultry structure should run from east to west. This helps to prevent direct sunlight from striking your birds, and at the same time prevents the strong rain from entering inside your poultry structure. At some point, there are those rains that come with wind, and if your poultry structure is constructed in a different direction, then your poultry house is likely to get wet. Most of the rains will splash inside your poultry house. If your litter gets wet, of course it's a disease. The moment the litter gets wet, that leads to the development of coccidia in the litter. Coccidia is a germ that causes coccidiosis on your poultry farm, which means that you will be having disease on your farm. Number two is that make sure that your poultry farm is fenced. This helps so much in preventing the spread of disease on your poultry farm, more especially diseases coming from outside. So if your farm is not fenced, that means that there will be access of other people and then other birds in the neighborhood inside your poultry farm. And this will be putting your poultry farm at high risk to diseases. That's why I normally tell people that it's not about the number of the birds that you want to start with. Whether you are starting with 50 birds, 100 birds, or even 1,000 birds, make sure that your farm is first fenced before bringing in your birds. A person with 50 birds with a fence on his poultry farm is more likely to succeed than a person with 1,000 birds without a fence on his poultry farm. It's like comparing a person keeping $50 in a bank to a person keeping $1,000 in a grass-thatched house. Of course, the person keeping his $50 in a bank is much safer than that one keeping $1,000 in a grass thatch house. The only reason this person with his $1,000 is safe is because of luck. The moment fire breaks out, your $1,000 is gone. So the point which I'm trying to mean is that if you're still succeeding on your poultry farm without a fence, then I must call you a lucky person. Start planning today and get your farm fenced before it worsens. Remember, not all of the people will be happy with what you're doing. As human beings, by nature, that's how we were made. We have thieves among us, we have those jealous people. By nature, that's how it is. By leaving your farm unfenced, you will be giving access for these kind of people inside your poultry farm, and they can do anything that they want at any time on your poultry farm. But if your farm is fenced, then you are a little bit safer than a person whose farm is not fenced. The next way of preventing the spread of disease on your poultry farm is by limiting the number of times a worker enters inside the poultry house. In fact, you must try as much as possible to minimize the contact of human beings with your birds. As we all know, human beings are the major disease carrier when it comes to poultry keeping. So by doing this, we are trying to minimize the chances of our birds getting ill. Make sure that the people that you employ on your farm, or if you are the one going to work yourself on your poultry farm, you should follow the biosecurity measures on your farm. Like for instance, things like disinfecting your feeds or your food before entering any poultry house. You must consider these things highly. Things like wearing the gumboots, wearing the overalls, all these things should be considered as something very, very important. And on top of that, make sure that your farm attires do not go outside your poultry farm. Like for instance, my overall and my gumboots don't go anywhere apart from the farm. I leave them on the farm. When I come in the morning, that's when I have to wear them. And when I'm going outside, I'll leave them inside my poultry farm. So don't let any attires, which mostly stay on your farm, go outside, because you never know what that person is going or where that person is going and what kind of disease that person is going to bring inside your poultry farm. Number 4 is that look at the hygiene of your poultry farm as something very important. Make sure that you wash your drinkers and then feeders daily if possible. It helps to prevent diseases which are caused by dust in your drinkers. Remember, prevention is better than cure. These things should be like a daily routine inside you. Get used to them, do them daily, and at some point you will get used to them and you will not find any problem in doing these kind of things. Number 5, which is very important, is the vaccination. There are very many diseases when it comes to poultry birds, and most of these diseases are vaccinatable. Try as much as possible to follow your vaccination schedule. I know most companies who sell day-old chicks give manual books to farmers. This manual book contains the type of feeds that you should give to your birds, the vaccination schedule, how much water you should give to your birds, the type of the birds. This manual book contains anything connected to the birds that you have got. So you must follow this vaccination schedule issued to you very carefully. And one thing that you should know is that vaccines are given to birds to fight a disease when it comes, but not to fight a disease when it is now inside the bird. Like for instance, when you vaccinate your birds against Newcastle disease this month, if Newcastle breaks out on your farm next month, the chances of your birds dying to Newcastle are very, very low. This is because they will be having that immunity that can fight Newcastle. But if Newcastle breaks out on your farm, before you vaccinating your birds, then you should not vaccinate them. At this point, it will be very difficult for the vaccines to fight against the virus, because the virus would have spread all over the body of that chicken. The vaccines that you will be injecting, they will at some point give more weakness to your birds. Number 6 is that do not allow farm visits to your farm. Do not allow farm visits to your farm unless the person coming to your farm is coming to do something very useful. Like for instance, a vet can visit your farm at any time, but also with tough conditions. he must be able to follow all the biosecurity measures on your farm. In fact, the vet are the kind of people that you should be very strict to when they're entering inside your poultry farm. Because these are the people that go to different farms every day, and you will never know what kind of disease this vet has brought from somewhere inside your poultry farm. So you must be very strict on this kind of people. Guys, don't be shy. Don't be too shy. Don't have that mentality that this is a vet. He or she can enter anytime inside my poultry farm. Remember, a doctor also dies. So you must be very strict. You must be very, very strict on these people. The next category of people is the friends and then families. These are the kind of people who, when you start your farm, would like to visit your farm at any time. So learn to say no to these kind of people. Because remember, this is a business, not a demonstration farm. And once you make any loss or once any disease comes inside your poultry farm, you are the one who will suffer the losses alone without anybody bearing with you. Do not allow farm visits to your farm, more especially when you are doing layers and then broilers. These birds are very, very weak and they are very sensitive to diseases. Once a disease breaks out, they will die in high number. And what does that mean? You are losing money. I know when you tell these people that there is no farm visits to my farm, they will think that you're bragging, but this is the things that you alone can understand. These people know nothing about poultry keeping. Number 7 is that try as much as possible to have a small structure aside. That one will act as a sick bay to your birds. This is not something very common with most farmers. And as I'm speaking it right now, most people outside there are hearing it very strange in their ears. But yes, it is that way. As we all know, most of these poultry diseases transmit from one bird to another. Just like in human beings. Remember, some years back, we had a pandemic all over the world, which I thank God is now no more. So at that time, when the health workers notice that you have some signs of this kind of disease, they will isolate you and you will stay alone inside your room or somewhere alone. This was because they wanted to prevent the spread of disease from one person to another. So that was one of the ways that we also managed to fight with this disease. That's a typical example of what I'm trying to say. There are some diseases which come to a bird, and if it is not detected, that way it will spread to most of the birds. But with a sick bay, you can see that this chick is not fine, and you pick it, you isolate it, and then start giving it treatment. And after, you can bring it back to the rest of the birds. That way, it will also help your birds to be safe from the spread of the diseases from one bird to another. Number 8 is proper disposal of dead birds. At some point, you can find a random bird dying without knowing what could have killed it or what kind of disease have killed it. So you must properly dispose this bird in the right area. If you just throw it anyhow and the rest of the birds have access to its remains, then the disease which killed it may also affect the other birds. This is more especially with the birds that are kept on a free-range system. Number 9 is that if you are still a beginner in the poultry thing and you don't know how to notice if a bird is sick or not, then I suggest you get someone who knows more about poultry keeping or a vet who can check your birds maybe after every 2 weeks to check on how the birds are doing, like the health of the birds, how the birds are feeding. That way it will help to also prevent the spread of diseases on your farm, because once he notices that this bird is sick, he will start giving it medication. But the best way is for you to personally know how to handle these birds. And at the same point, it will also be reducing the costs that you will be using in paying this kind of people or the vet that will be coming to check your birds. That's one of the reasons why I started this YouTube channel, to actually teach you guys on how you can run your poultry farm successfully, so that by the time you start your poultry farm, you will be well versed with all these kind of things. So if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. And if you have found this video being beneficial to you, or if you have liked this video, then kindly hit that like button. That way YouTube will recommend this video to most of the people so that they can watch and then help them. Don't forget to hit the notification bell That way you'll never miss out in case I upload any new video. The last one is the source of your feeds. This is if you mix your feeds by yourself. For instance, ingredients like fish meal, these are things that are being contaminated when processing them. In fact, they are spread on the ground where there is access for local birds and then the wild birds inside it. These wild birds and then the local birds can bring diseases inside this fish meal. And if you bring this fish meal inside your farm and start mixing your own feeds, that way it can also transfer the disease to your birds. Otherwise, thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye-bye.